Hello, we are Teenage Wrist, and we are hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
I found out about you guys from another artist because every once in a while I like to just go online and just look at random interviews. So there was an interview with this artist named Dorothy. Are you guys familiar?
Yeah.
And she was talking about you guys that that's what she was into at the moment. So I checked you guys out on Spotify, and you guys had just dropped the record. And yeah, great timing. So I was like, did you guys kind of plan this? Like, how did that work out? But I'm liking the music, and I'm liking this debut album. Talk to me a little bit about the creative process behind this record, and what that experience was like for you guys.
I've said this before, but I mean it in the kind of the best way. It was kind of, for the most part, it was a pretty easy process. Yeah. I think we went into it knowing exactly what we wanted. And we had already kind of paved a way for ourselves sonically and aesthetically with our EP that we had put out in 2015. So we knew what we wanted. We knew how we wanted to kind of progress from that sound. I can't really remember any hiccups, honestly. It was fun. It was really fun. So it was like there were a couple months of writing. I think we wrote for 2 months, and then the actual recording process was fairly quick and fairly easy, maybe less than 2 weeks. The worst part is just waiting around, but
knowing that you did your job, you're just waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, you just have to wait around. But other than that, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, Carlos De La Garza, why did you guys choose to work with this producer? He's worked with a lot of bands like Jimmy Eat World or Paramore. Most recently, I think it was Paramore. So it's not really in your genre of music. But why did you guys choose to work with him?
Well, I mean, first of all, we went out with him one time before we even, decided to finalize, and he took us to get ice cream. We had a beer with him, and he was just a great hang. Yeah. So he seemed like a natural choice. You want somebody that you're going to vibe with on a personal level, right. If you're working with him as a producer, I think. And we dig his catalog. He had just worked on the latest Wolf Alice record.
Right, that's one of them.
Yeah, and I don't know, I dig that record. That's been one of my favorites. So, and he's local. He's in Eagle Rock, which was a nice, easy commute.
Saves you some money as well, yeah.
We don't have to go to the East Coast or anything like that. So, yeah, it kind of worked out, and it was a brilliant fit.
Right. What was it like working with him in the studio? How did he, especially the first day, you guys are, aside from knowing him from getting ice cream and stuff, working with him the first day, what was that experience like?
Well, he just really facilitated what we wanted from even through pre-production. So when we sat with him before actually going into the studio, everything was very clearly laid out. So actually going in was pretty straightforward. We got in, we set up. I think we did 3 days of drums, and then basically went into tracking from there. And it was he like I said, he just did a really good job. Sort of every time that we had an idea, sort of on the fly. It wasn't anything that was too out of anyone's reach. So he just made it really easy for us to get to where we wanted. And even in the process of suggesting things, like how Marshall said it, and Cam too, is really organic. Yeah. Everything just sort of came about, and there weren't any flubs or hiccups. We just really had a great time doing it, and everyone seemed very focused. So it was a really cool process to get all that music out and to hear it come to life. And he really did a great job with it. Yeah.
Now, Cam, from the 2015 EP to this one, how do you feel your songwriting kind of evolved? Did you feel it was a big change from that first EP?
I mean, more or less. I think it was the perfect progression from Days, and I think for us as a band, for us as songwriters and producers, it was the perfect step, and I think is what we I guess at the end of the day desired to do. But and kind of going back to Anthony and talking about the recording process, we've been doing this for a while, and I think we're all kind of producers in our own way. So having Carlos there was just that extra push. Right. We knew it always goes back to we knew exactly what we wanted, and especially sonically as well. We knew how the record was supposed to sound. It's weird when I get asked to explain it, because it just was very easy. So I don't really have a good answer.
It just happens, man.
Yeah. No, and but honestly, that's rare for it to just happen that way.
It was good, and obviously there were moments where you think to yourself, "Is this good enough? Do these songs suck?" You always have to ask yourself those questions, but we knew what kind of set ourselves apart from some of the other bands in this scene, and I think we were able to grasp that and just push that a little further. And yeah, maybe we'll do that again next time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just happened. So
Now, you guys already knew what sound you kind of wanted to get out of this, but why did you feel the sound that the way that these guitars sounded was so important for this band?
I think right from the beginning, it's been a guitar-driven thing. I mean, it evolved from just Cam and I sitting and recording on my laptop.
Yeah.
So we would kind of just go crazy with like how many layers we could do of guitars, and it's just just stacking and like melodies over here and all sorts of different tones and textures happening, and it just I don't know, just kind of evolved that way. That's how I've always kind of constructed parts and songs, and just that's just kind of been the way that I play, and obviously
influences are that too, though. Like that's it. It's like our influences are wall of sound, guitar-driven bands, and whether it's textures from a Catherine Wheel record or I don't want to use the word nasty. I don't know. I almost said nasty tone, nasty distortion tone that you would hear on like an early Pumpkins record of any sort. But Marshall is one hell of a guitar player. It's pretty. That's what kind of like sparked this band in a way. It was like me loving what he did with his other bands and being like, how the fuck do I get that? I was like, well, the only way to get that is to start a fucking band with them. So, but yeah, it just, and again, I keep saying it goes back, but it goes back to us knowing our influences in a way, wanting to wear it on our sleeve, but put a twist on it.
Right.
So, we're grabbing from a lot of different places where we came from, local punk scenes. We grew up going to hardcore shows, but also on top of that, like one of the first bands I ever fell in love with was Oasis, so like there are these weird ties that maybe explain why we're able to have such heavy aspects yet blend that with melodic, dare I use the word pop sense when it comes down to vocals, and everything kind of goes hand in hand at the end of the day. And I think Chrome Neon Jesus was the proof to us that we were able to kind of do that.
Yeah, because I mean, just listening to the guitars, like and you kind of mentioned Oasis, like that. I only, if anything, I only hear someone like Liam still kind of use that kind of sound today. Like it's not a sound that you hear so often today.
Yeah, which kind of blows my mind because it's such an incredible sound,
Right.
and that's what people keep telling us. Like anyone that's been digging our music in the past few months or years or whatever has just said, you guys are you're bringing guitars back, and I'm like, that's a bummer that they had to leave, So,
You would think they'd be here this whole time that everybody's creating music.
yeah, I still have a guitar.
Right.
I
I guess people are just don't know how to play it in a sense.
I wouldn't even say that. It's I guess the tides just change.
Right.
Paying attention again. It even goes back to that, what was it, 4 years ago when everyone was freaking out about the emo revival. But at the end of the day, this scene never stopped.
Right.
It continued to go. It was just going. Just the camera wasn't on anymore.
Right.
And I
Paying
think
attention to other things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the same thing with guitars. Look at bands like Citizen, Title Fight, Balance and Composure. A lot of these bands were taking these elements that newer bands like us are doing, and they've been doing it for a long time. It just now bands like that fortunately kind of opened up the door for bands like us to kind of like jump into and be blessed enough to play shows with them, share the stage with them, and share a lot of the same fans. So just people are paying attention again.
Right.
I think it's that simple.
Now, listening to the record, I mean, Stoned Alone, I feel like that's just a major track off this record. Like, when you guys created that track, like, did you guys know that it was going to get the kind of hype that it's getting at the moment?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's just, I guess you have a good feeling, you have a gut feeling whenever you turn out somewhat of a song, whether it's at least going to like make the cut for the record or not. And we had a feeling that it was, it was special in some way, but personally speaking, I didn't, see it taking us to a new level or getting as much attention as it did. But I don't know, maybe that's just me being self-deprecating and humble, or trying to be. I don't know. Yeah, but there was obviously something there,
Right.
like when we did it.
Now tell me a little bit more about tracking the drums on the sessions for this album. Like what was it like for you, and how did you kind of get challenged this time around?
Well, Carlos is a drummer, and he's a really good one. So anytime you have a producer who's also a drummer, you know the eyes are on you.
Yeah.
So you want to do your best, and but it was interesting because we had done the drums in a certain way when we had initially done some of the earlier stuff, and so going to Carlos was interesting because I think again he knew exactly what we wanted. I remember there was something that really happened that I loved where we had our first sit down with him. And then, we met and we were like, oh, this is awesome. Then we had a second time running around with him. We went to his place to kind of like talk about what gear we were going to bring. Right. And I was like, hey man, I was really thinking I wanted this like drum set that's like copper. And he goes, oh, I already got it. Like he and I were on the same level. So it was really cool that I think
just earning more points as
yeah, and obviously again, it was just one of those things where I think it was just obvious to everyone what everything needed. So when we showed up and we had great people work on the record. Our buddy Mike Fasano was on the record helping us tech and getting the tones, and we brought so much gear, and just every song there was because the drums are we wanted big drums, we wanted them to be loud and hard hitting. It's just to impact with the guitars and everything, and so we just had all this gear, and in every song there was something that was different, just slightly. Like we would change out an element. Uh-huh. And
was this on purpose or just coincidentally?
Yeah, all on purpose. We actually all had it written down, and track for track, kind of just went and did these small things that, I think you want people to, when you're doing the process of making drums, you want people who pay attention to those things, because right. I think it's really easy sometimes just to go in, bang out drum parts, and then just kind of be like, that's good enough, and then you leave. But to really have the slightest attention to detail, it really changes the dynamic. And then going into mixing, it's I'm stoked about how the drums came out in this record, and being challenged and even being in this band is a cool thing. Like where I think we just want space and we want it to be big, and we want everything to drive, whether it's the guitars, the bass, the vocals, the drums. Everything needs to imply the emotion, and so learning how to do that constantly with new songs and where to push it and where to experiment, that's always a challenge. So I had a lot of fun doing drums in this record.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there a specific track on this record that was difficult to create?
I mean, there are definitely songs. If you're writing any song, you'll hit a point where there's road A and then road B. I think we maybe a couple times saw that, but for the most part, kind of it just came together quickly. I'm trying to think of one specific song where we were really trying to figure out like, well, maybe we should do this, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anything.
I think song-wise, we were never like super deep in a rut, but when it came to mixing, like some of these songs, we just like stacked so much stuff, and we had to kind of kill our darlings, trying to weed stuff out so it wasn't just a complete mess. and Swallow was one of those songs. I think that it took a while to really grab the mix.
I think that was the one that had the killer like guitar solo, right? Or
yeah. Yep, and that actually came together just super last minute. Yeah, Cam's buddy Tom had one of those whammy pedals, and we had tried to track the solo, maybe for an hour or so, maybe two, before, like the day before, and we were like, man, it's just not. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing weird. There's nothing edgy. Like nobody gives a shit about like a guitar solo, with like a like, some Jimmy Page shit. But not that I'm not gonna talk shit on Zeppelin, but yeah, we tried. We got lucky with that one, and it presented itself, and so it became this kind of crazy moment in the record.
As you guys kind of came from different backgrounds in music, like how did you guys actually make the sound that this band creates? Like how did you make it work?
I mean, to brief history, just Marshall and I used to live in Colorado. We went to high school together and like knew each other. We were acquaintances. Older we got, we were all playing in bands separately. Our bands would play shows together. So that's kind of how the relationship built, and we became better friends as time went on. So I was kind of in a musical rut where I was in just like a separate career, separate path, and I mean, I can't speak for him, but I was just like, I need something different just to kind of spark the brain. But yeah, going back, I just loved the way he played guitar, loved the way he wrote songs. So we got together and started. It took a few months to kind of really get things going as to what the band was even going to be. We were trying to kind of figure out. I remember we did a song that sounded like BRMC at one point, and it was like, because I was like, I want to be in like a BRMC style band, and then like we did it, and it was like, this is kind of whack. But we ended up, I think the one Slide Away was an idea it had for like, was always like a small idea, certain parts of it, and then when we started working on it, his guitar kind of just it turned into life, like, or turned into a reality essentially. I feel like that song defined the band. The EP came shortly, and then Marshall met Anthony upon moving to LA and like playing around town and stuff like that. So when it was like, this thing is gonna be real, let's have a drummer, he came up. But it was like, this is early, this is like the EP days, if not before.
Still trying to figure it out the sound.
But it just kind of we ended up figuring it out. Once we figured it out, it's been like an somewhat of an easy journey, and like we started messing around with new ideas for like new music, and it seems like I hate to use the word easy again, but it seemed like it's kind of easy. Like Marshall was playing me some stuff, I'm like, fuck, this is awesome. Like it's the kind of like that perfect progression, and I've always had that mentality in life. If you're not progressing, just something's wrong. So there needs to be this constant motion, and I think we found it. I think we found the sound. Yeah. But we want to build on it. It's always that. Right. You know, like I don't think we ever want to do another Chrome Neon Jesus. Just like we didn't want to ever do another Dazed. Right. So it's like there are aspects of this band that I love and I want to always keep, but also there are aspects of this band that I'm bored of already. So I want to kind of
that was quick.
Let's move forward. Let's build and like figure out. But I think that's the way to do it. Right. You're supposed to be bored. Get bored. If you don't get bored, you're wasting your time. Right. You know what I mean? Because it'll give you a different outlook on everything. And I think that goes hand in hand with music. Right.
Well, I think that like now, because you guys are about to go on tour again, like I feel like that's gonna help you out as far as the next record or the next piece of music. But what can we expect for this upcoming tour with Thrice and Bronx?
We're whipping out all the heavy stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, only Korn. They just did Follow the Leader front to back, so we're doing the same thing, but only half the record because we only have a 30-minute set. So.
We're doing Follow the Leader in our style. Not even. I mean, I'm going straight fieldy on it. No, I mean we have to somehow keep up with Thrice and the Bronx. You know, two bands that like I grew up listening to, and totally opened up my world to like hardcore and post punk and just kind of punk rock in general. So we've spent a lot of time rehearsing. We spent a lot of time, working out our set to where it's, hopefully something that holds your attention. And I think we'll be able to fill those shoes.
Even though this is like the biggest tour this band's done, it's kind of like the most carefree in a way. I don't know how to explain it, but just and maybe it's because we've been on the road a lot this year, but it's very much just like, let's have fun. Everyone seems really cool. We were fortunate enough we had a flight back home from the UK with the Bronx, so we briefly met, and we've heard nothing but great things about the guys in Thrice. But it's just such a cool experience. Illusion of Safety and Identity Crisis were like some of the heaviest, like the first like heavy records, like along with a few others, but those were like two important records of like me realizing that there's like more than pop punk or something like that, you know what I mean? So it's cool. It's really cool. It's really cool that we get to do this. And the Bronx, I mean, when that first record came out, I mean, like that's some heavy,
it's pretty heavy,
fun punk rock music. So it's just all in all, it's really amazing. And I think even just having this opportunity, it's pushed us. We've rehearsed more than we ever rehearsed. We really want to like dial in and just make a very like seamless set. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be just really fun. I think that's like the that's the good attitude to have about it. It's just gonna be really fun. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. You guys be sure to check out Teenage Wrist. They're on tour starting tomorrow with Thrice and the Bronx. Get their new album, debut album for Epitaph Records, Chrome Neon Jesus. And thanks for watching here on Front Row Live.